Hi everyone, this is Tony Ericetti. I'm going to give you some information about how to complete assignment 1, in which you're going to submit an outline for your project design. And a few words about my role with you. My role will really be to review your work, bounce ideas off, suggest edits, correct some typos if they come up. I've done a lot of work with students over the last few years on this area, and so I want to make sure that you understand that I'm really here to work with you and not just criticize your writing. I'm here to kind of challenge your thinking sometimes, but this is mostly a supportive position for you to do the best writing you can. So let's talk about how to carry this out. So the final 801 project, you're going to be submitting essentially an outline of 3 chapters. They will not be completely fleshed out as you will in 802, but you will come up with an outline for chapter 1, introduction and background, why you're doing what your study about, why you're doing this. Chapter 2, an outline of the review of your literature, in which you'll have to submit a substantial reference list of articles and so forth that you'll review uh, for 802. And then finally, an outline of your proposed methods. How do you intend to gather data, for example, and so forth. And so I will then provide a template for the 801 um, product that you'll submit at the end of this year, at the end of the semester. Where I would start is starting to familiarize myself with the 801 and 802 capstone template document that is uploaded here. And what you want to do is, for 801, is focus on the first 3 chapters and really take a good look at what's going to be required of you. And it'll provide a good starting point for beginning this particular project. Your first assignment is due in week 3, and I think this is should be kind of a challenging but a fun assignment for you, because you only have to put your ideas down in on one page, double spaced. Just give me an idea of what you're going to be doing, and also you'll include some of the research questions that you might come up with, refined using the FINER framework. Let me explain how all this is going to work. First, for your outline, I would start here. I would start thinking about what type of project are you proposing. For example, is it an educational project in which you're teaching using some simulation modality? Is it research? Are you comparing subjects, a pre-post design? Uh, or even are you reviewing literature, in which you're going to review completely the literature of mannequin-based simulations in, I don't know, neonatal resuscitation. And so you need to think about, what kind of project am I going to propose here? What do I really want to do? And leading to this is, what is the problem or issue that you have identified that you'd like to focus on? It could be a problem in your institution, a lack of training in a particular area that you would like to answer with your project. Um, you have to think about, where is the setting that I'm going to carry out this project? Um, what are my available subjects? Who are the learners that I'm going to be using? And so it's a good idea to start answering some of these questions right now, and even lining up the subjects. But first, let's try to figure out what you're going to be doing. So the other thing to consider is, what type of simulation modality are you considering? Is it going to be mannequin-based sim, standardized patient? That's my particular area of specialty. A hybrid of those two, or part task trainers, or something else. Could be virtual reality if you have access to that. Computer-based simulations. Then I would start thinking about the FINER framework and how this works to help you to define your research questions, to define the issues that you want to work on. And FINER stands for these 5 things. Is it feasible? Is it interesting? Is it novel? Is it ethical? And is it relevant? And so I would start to think about first, is it interesting? Will the study be personally interesting and rewarding to you? Is this the thing that really drives you? That sometimes this is what keeps people going. They've developed a project that's personally and professionally interesting to themselves, and they like the idea of adding to the profession as well. And do your colleagues believe that the study is interesting? And so I think it's important to start thinking about a peer or a mentor who you can go to bounce ideas off in your institution or your area that you're wherever you're working, because you're going to need them to perhaps clarify some information. Again, it's bounce ideas off, so need to start lining up someone right now that you can start talking with and see what they think. The other issue is it feasible? Is there enough time to you to complete the study? You don't want to start something that can't be completed by the time that you graduate. Does your study lead to actual attainable objectives? That sometimes people will propose, and they have less than a year to complete 801 and 802, that their project will um, lead to greater patient outcomes in some particular area, which is really going to be impossible to measure in a short time frame. So I'm here to kind of help you work on what objectives would be attainable in the time frame that you do have. And again, you want to start thinking about your available subjects, and those need to be lined up pretty quickly, and it's often a political thing having to deal with whoever their supervisors are and all those issues. Is it novel? This requires you to understand what's actually being done in the field with your idea. There are very, very few original ideas. All of our great ideas are built on the shoulders of others. So you really need to find out who has done what kind of work in my area of interest, and this is where it's helpful to talk to people. Um, but you need to actually go to the literature and get familiar with how to search for relevant articles and studies and so forth. Does your study, will it fill a gap in the literature? Maybe what you're proposing hasn't been done before. Um, Maybe it has been done before, but not in quite the same way that you're proposing it. So think about that and be able to respond to this. And is it ethical? And if you're using human subjects for research, learners, whoever they are, you'll have to go through an IRB. So that has to be dealt with pretty quickly. That's why we need to get the outline, and then you would probably need to talk with someone on your campus or hospital, wherever you work, who's in charge of the IRB, and run an idea by them and get their ideas, their guidance on how to proceed. And what steps you have to think about, what steps would need to be taken to protect the safety and identity of potential participants in your project. Finally, is it relevant? Will your study improve upon learning outcomes? Will your study improve upon patient safety by having better trained clinicians? That might be the hope. You won't be able to perhaps tell whether or not it actually does lead to increased patient safety, but it's something for us to talk about. Will your study meet the needs of the learners you currently serve? So that's another idea in terms of relevance. And then finally, you're going to come up with some research question or two or three. What are you studying? Can, for example, X simulation program improve X skills with X subjects? And even though you're designing a program, you should have some questions about whether or not it's actually going to work. You don't want to be biased towards your results. You want to set up a study, perhaps even if it's an educational program, in which you study the outcomes of the learning. Maybe you think that this program that you're going to develop will work, but at the end you find out it didn't work, and then you'd have to explain that. And that wouldn't be a problem because that would be a good learning opportunity. Not every project has to work. It just has to be clear, systematic, gather good data, analyze the data, and then analyze the results and go from there. So I wouldn't be too worried about success. Uh, I'd be more prone to pay attention to the steps that involved in developing your project. And finally, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. You have my contact information, and I really look forward to talking with you about your project soon. Thanks.